The Early Life of Queen Victoria, A Journey to the Throne. Beneath the grand arches of Kensington Palace lies the origin of a royal tale unlike any other. This is the story of Queen Victoria. Born into modest beginnings within the web of British and European royalty, Victoria's rise to the throne was anything but ordinary. Her reign would span over 6 decades, defining the Victorian age. However, before she became a symbol of empire and resilience, she was Alexandrina Victoria, a quiet child, restrained by rules but destined for greatness. Today, we journey back to the early 19th century to uncover how this determined young girl grew into one of Britain's most iconic monarchs. On May 24, 1819, the cries of a newborn echoed through Kensington Palace's grand halls. The baby was christened Alexandrina Victoria, a name steeped in the traditions of both British and German nobility. She was the daughter of Prince Edward, Duke of Kent and Strathern, the fourth son of King George III, and Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. Though born into privilege, Victoria's position in the line of succession was far from secure. Her father was a younger son, overshadowed by his elder brothers. The early years of her life were marked by uncertainty. Tragically, in 1820, when Victoria was just 8 months old, her father passed away suddenly. Left in the care of her mother, Princess Victoria, young Alexandrina began her life not under the grandeur of a destined queen but in the protective shadows of a grieving and determined parent. Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld emerged as a central figure in Alexandrina Victoria's life. With the death of her husband, she committed herself entirely to securing her daughter's future. She was determined to ensure Victoria would have a role that transcended her precarity within the royal family. Shielding her child from the political intrigues of King George III's court, the princess instilled a sense of discipline and ambition in her small family. Victoria's childhood was marked by control and isolation under the Kensington system. Devised by her mother and Sir John Conroy, this rigid structure left little room for freedom, carefully curating her every moment and distancing her from royal relatives. Growing up in Kensington Palace, Victoria lived within grandeur but also solitude. The palace's sprawling gardens may have been her playground, but they were also her boundaries. Under the Kensington system, she was not permitted to dine in public, speak informally to servants, or even walk down the palace staircase without being accompanied. Her life was a paradox, destined for a royal crown but isolated from the very world she was born to lead. This tight control created a childhood where joys were small but meaningful. Victoria found solace in her pets, her sketchbook, and her governess, Baroness Louise Letson, who became one of her few trusted allies. Despite the restrictions, moments of laughter and creativity would remind her of life beyond the strict confines of palace protocol. Victoria's education was just as carefully constructed as her daily routine. Her mother ensured that her daughter was well versed in history, languages, and music. Under the tutelage of Baroness Letson, Victoria exhibited determination and intellectual sharpness. Even as a child, she showed signs of independence that occasionally challenged her restrictive environment. Her diaries from these formative years hint at a keen awareness of her royal destiny. Though still uncertain about her place in the family hierarchy, she understood her responsibility as a potential future sovereign. This sense of duty would guide her in years to come, laying the foundation for the disciplined monarch she would become. Victoria's path to the throne was shaped by tragic twists of fate. The royal line of succession stretched far ahead of her in the early years of her life. Her grandfather, King George III, had numerous heirs, including her uncles George IV and William IV. However, George IV produced no legitimate heirs, and William IV's children did not survive infancy. Over the years, as the possibilities narrowed, young Victoria emerged as the most viable heir to the throne, a turn of events that her mother had long hoped for. With each passing year, the spotlight on Victoria grew through no design of her own. She was no longer just the shy Alexandrina Victoria at Kensington Palace, she was the child upon whom the British Crown's continuity hung precariously. The rise of Victoria's significance triggered tensions within the royal court. Her uncle, the Duke of Cumberland, was a looming presence, openly challenging her mother's influence over the young princess. He sought to shape Victoria's future by positioning himself as a guardian figure. Meanwhile, Sir John Conroy wielded power behind the scenes as he sought to control both the Kensington household and Victoria's future decisions. Caught between her mother's authority, Conroy's manipulations, and broader court politics, Victoria remained poised. Her resilience during these years demonstrated a strength well beyond her age, an ability to navigate the complexities of royal conflicts that foreshadowed her reign. Even amidst the constraints of the Kensington system and court intrigue, Victoria carved out moments of personal happiness. She adored her dolls, filled pages of her diary with thoughts about the world, and dreamed of freedom. Baroness Letson encouraged her creative pursuits and helped nurture her sense of individuality. Perhaps her greatest act of defiance against the constraints of her life was the simple act of holding on to her personal dreams. While her childhood may have seemed lonely to outsiders, Victoria's internal world was vibrant and full of imagination. As the 1830s progressed, the health of King William IV began to decline. By this time, Victoria was fully aware that her destiny was drawing nearer. She turned 18 in 1837, setting aside the restrictions of her childhood and legally opening the path to her reign. Just weeks later, William IV passed away, and Alexandrina Victoria officially became Queen on June 20, 1837. Gone was the shy girl confined to Kensington's walls, elevated to lead the growing British Empire. Her coronation symbolized not just the start of a new era but also the triumph of her courage through a highly controlled childhood. Queen Victoria herself married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, and they had 9 children together. Their descendants married into many European royal families, earning her the nickname Grandmother of Europe. For all those who admire royalty and history, her story is an enduring testament to how even within strict boundaries, greatness can emerge. And it all began, as it did most unexpectedly, on a quiet day at Kensington Palace in 1819.